Immediately after. Immediately after. Thank you.
Oh shit. Oh shit.
Okay,
Oh
we
shit.
ready?
I think almost.
Oh,
That's not gonna get it.
We can't play.
Kareem,
We
that's
can't
not-
play no more.
Oh no, I'm talking about for karaoke.
I know,
What you
but
going?
I
Oh.
think we about to get started, so we can't play. Are we live right now?
Oh.
How is
Karaoke.
everybody doing?
We're good.
How is everybody doing? Yesenia, could you just press
Hello.
that red button right there for me? We are live here at Market Days.
Yeah.
Project Vida, Link Up, MBS. Everybody's here. Everybody's here.
Yeah, we have a
and
good
while we're here having fun and doing karaoke and dancing,
Yes.
we also want to make sure that folks are being safe.
Yeah.
We want to talk about harm reduction. We want to talk about what Link Up is doing. So I'm going to let the guests introduce themselves right now. I'm Antonio Ginn. I'm with Link Up and Project Vida.
I am Dr. Maya Green, also known as Dr. 100, going 100 on health. I am from Onyx Medical Wellness, part of the community,
And I am
part
Kareem.
of the Chicago Methamphetamine Task Force, which we want to give a shout out to, and we want to give a shout out to CDPH for all the work they're doing and sponsoring.
yes. And I am Kareem Dent, along with Dr. Green. I'm a part of the Crystal Methamphetamine Task Force. I am a caucus core member MBS, and Link Up Chicago support line work volunteer. And a whole bunch of other stuff too.
So much more. Dr. Maya Green, can you talk a little bit about your research leading up to where we're at right now?
So, transparently, not my research, but the research done by Chicago Methamphetamine Task Force. Starting in July of 2023, going to November 2023, they started research for four basic purposes. They wanted to know the specific needs as identified by people vulnerable for substance use, and they wanted to use that to stimulate conversation between people who provide services, medical and otherwise, social determinants of health services. They also wanted to demonstrate the need for funding for this, because a lot of times, even though we see social determinants of health and things like that, they'll say, oh, well, where's the research that says we need this, right? And then they wanted to put those things together and actually put equity into action. So those were the purposes. We actually were able to reach 276 people that black people who identify as gay, bisexual, and same gender loving men. And we were able to get some numbers. I can go over them briefly, or we can get into it. Okay, sure. About 2 out of 10 people experience homelessness. 3 out of 10 were noted that they had either received detox or been in substance use treatment in their lives or were presently. And here it is, 6 out of 10 were living with some aspect of problems with social determinants of health, lack of housing, lack of being able to find a job, that kind of thing. So here we see social determinants of health all embedded in this. So it's one thing to say, oh, you're just experiencing substance use, you're doing this. But it's another thing to look at the narrative that we all do a part of creating for these individuals, which methamphetamine specifically, when you create that narrative and that person is trying to escape it, methamphetamine was actually a drug created for that. We'll get more into that, and it will explain why we see that kind of pattern.
Thank you, Dr. Green. Kareem, can you talk a little bit about what attracted you to this work, what you do, and how you fit into all this?
Okay, so, well, I've been in Health and Human Services as a case manager for almost 20-something years, helping people that are homeless, at-risk youth, and a lot of different people, HIV positive people. And I found myself in a situation where I got caught up in the use of crystal meth. And so I became the person that needed the service as opposed to the person providing the service. So once here in Chicago, I reached out for help. I got help, went into treatment, and then once I got out of treatment, I wanted to find resources in Chicago that can help people that look like me support each other. And so I just Googled crystal meth help for black people and on Google, and I got Crystal Clear came up, and then Dr. Keith Green came up, and so I reached out to the caucus, with Dr. Keith Green is the executive director of, and I became a member, and then now I was part of the survey. I helped build that survey, actually, and then I am now working with Link Up Chicago, doing the support line. I'm a volunteer for the support line, and I'm back working in my field. But it's still it's not as easy as I'm making it sound. It's not. It's a daily struggle, and especially for someone who suffers from any sort of depression or anything like that, and isolation and loneliness. This drug really attaches to those people, and it's like 10 times worse in this community, in the Black, gay, and lesbian community.
You know, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, speaking on Crystal Clear, for the folks that aren't aware of that, Dr. Keith Green with Jerome Montgomery and a list of other folks, Darren, Calhoun, Slater, there was some other folks on there as well, created a docu-series called Crystal Clear, going over the research and the lack of research into this specific topic. So that within that sprouted so many other initiatives and groups that came from that. Link Up, Methamphetamine Task Force. So now we have multiple initiatives trying to address everything here. So Dr. Green, what was something that surprised you about all of the research that came out of everything?
You know, what really surprised me was the disconnect between a lot of providers and the people we say we serve, right? Everything is there for us to fully understand. We see it every day, but we never put it down on paper, right? And what is that hesitancy about? A little background to what Kareem said. Kareem just said everything I'm gonna say. So crystal meth was created in 1863 during war times to keep soldiers fighting up and through death. What it does is there's a happy hormone or happy chemical called dopamine, and it goes in and out our nerves. And while it's in the streets, not in the nerves, while it's in the streets, it's available. We can feel it, and it causes euphoria, happiness and euphoria. So what happens? Crystal meth blocks it from going back into the nerves. So now you have all this dopamine sitting available, and you, because of that, it gets in your bloodstream. You start to feel happy, then you start to feel euphoric, and at the far end of it is this invincibility that it has. So what does that have to do with what you just said? Right. So in this country, right, we know because of how we're created, this country, though everybody was born here into the same thing. When we think of 1776 syndrome, and that is when we signed the Declaration of Independence declaring that all men were created equal, there were only certain men that were in that room, and those were the people they were talking about. They weren't talking about me and you. And so what they did is go about life creating that space where those men had the opportunity to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, but you didn't. Right? And so what happens when you're not that gender, you're not that race, you're not that stated orientation, you're not that race, you're not that religion, right? You live then in the narrative created by those same people who vote and are legislators then, right? And so they create certain pockets that allow them to thrive, but somebody has to do the work for them to thrive. That's what's happening in other neighborhoods. So you said it clearly. You were experiencing downness, depression. You were trying to do the work, because we all grow up trying to do the work, trying to solve some problem we saw when we was a kid. Whatever field you in right now is because of your experiences, right? So here you are talking about, and I was a social worker, and I was doing all this work, and it's so hard, right? Because of the environment created for you. You're trying to push against an environment that's centuries old created for you. So what does that mean? You're going to experience depression. What does that mean? You want euphoria.
Oh my goodness.
And so
depression, burnout, all of that.
Yes.
All of that. Just trying to not taking care of yourself, too busy taking care of others.
Yes.
I did not know what self-care was.
Yes.
And I was providing. We got Charles did.
We blew him over. We blew him over.
We blown over.
Yeah.
We're back.
But no, seriously, I didn't know what the idea of self-care was. So the only thing I did was just go to work and take care of my clients and go home and then just, but I wasn't having my own, taking care of myself. I thought 100%, I gave 100% of myself to taking care of others. And then all of a sudden, when I needed to be taken care of, I don't know how to do it. And then the substance was introduced to me and it changed everything.
Because it put that hormone
Right.
in your space, and then you wanted more and more of it. And then, so what happens with methamphetamine is, people don't know this. There's a book called 33, and it interviews 33 people about it's called 33, methamphetamine, and they call it a love story, you know, because we don't like to talk about the actual culture that goes on. There's a culture within a culture that we don't even know about. We're so disconnected. And a person has to come out of that culture to even ask for help. So when they come and ask, we got to be ready, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So 33, read it, a love story, or listen to it, whatever. But once you're in that space, then you feel the euphoria, but it actually makes it harder to get out the further you get into it.
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, and that, oh my God, I mean, I can go on and on about the after effects of that euphoria, you know, staying up I mean, for days upon days. And then once you're in that space where you're coming down off of it, you're physically, your body, your muscles is not working, and you originally can't even do anything. But then you find yourself still depressed, lonely, whatever, and no resources to reach out to. So you go to your best friend, and that bitch was my best friend for a second. And so now, you know, building community, doing what we're doing here, and meeting all and volunteering in the community, you know, I'm not lonely anymore. So I can reach out to people and have those real conversations, and also, you know, set goals and set plans for myself. The things that I used to do when I was younger, you know, and all that stuff went to the wayside when that stuff was introduced to me. So just building the community and taking care of yourself, man, you can do wonders with that.
So I just want to say before we move on, align with what you said. In that study, around 60% of people who chose to use meth did it in social settings amongst romantic partners, along with the idea of wanting community. So that is very heavy, right? And you're saying, I wanted community, and what you've done. So it's not just take the chemical out your body. It's we have to build communal structure to find that community, right?
Right.
About 60%, that was the reason they did it. They wanted to be in community. Sorry, I know. We can talk about this all day. Let's go.
It's like the dark side of building community.
Yes.
Like, you know, I'm surrounded by a whole bunch of people I don't even know, but we're all just kind of like, whatever the hell's going on, you know? And for that moment, you feel like that, you know, you're in this community. Then it goes away and you're back to your life. And you're like, what the fuck?
Exactly.
Kareem, can you talk a little bit about some more of the barriers that you experienced trying to get into care, trying to get help, like in Chicago specifically as well?
Yeah, I don't know if I am the best person for that question, because the reason is I worked in healthcare. I am a social worker. I know the resources. I'm kind of a unique experience, but working with other folks that's affected by this, I see specifically on the South Side, I see lack of transportation as a barrier. I see it's almost like, you know what they call like food deserts. Y'all heard that term, food deserts? There are health deserts. And so it's people that don't have access to it, don't even know what it is. One day I was speaking with the client, and they said, and I told them about PrEP, I didn't even know what that was, and I was like, taken aback. So it's really getting the word out there and helping those people with those barriers to get attached to those resources.
So that underscores another point of the study. In the study, the neighborhoods where people experience methamphetamine use worse and more detrimental were Kenwood,
Yep.
South Shore, South Chicago,
Yep.
Auburn, Gresham, right? Inglewood. I'm drawing a blank on one on the west side was Austin. There's one, Jackson Park.
Yes.
Is the other one on the south side, and then Austin. So when you talk about those barriers, that goes back to that 70-17-6 syndrome, how it's created, how these spaces, even Chicago is created, right?
Right.
They're actually in deserts. There's very little health care, very little access, very little marketing and communication about these things are available. However, the stressors that are there, we know if you build more greenery, that decreases people's stress, right? There's less greenery. So the stresses are there. There's a book called Political Determinants of Health by Daniel Dawes, and it very clearly outlines how we went from the forming of this country to where we are now and why certain neighborhoods look like that, right? Yeah. And so those social determinants of health, like you said, are in certain neighborhoods that are now deserts. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah. And it's literally, now that I think about it, when you're in those areas, it literally looks like a desert. It's a resource desert.
Yes.
Not just a food desert, not just a health, it's just a resource desert.
Yes.
And I can go on, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Dr. Maya, is there anything else that you want folks to know about the research that's being done, what folks can do to help, or just something that they can take away from all of this? What's the main thing that you would like people to take away from this?
So the main thing I would love people to take away from is, yes, we laid the foundation, and building upon that, that is what Chicago Methamphetamine Task Force is doing, building upon it. Like we said, the next step is advocate for more funding. The next step is get providers to talk about it, because it's not as talked about in those same deserts, and the providers who want to do this work often have to operate in silos, right? And so because a lot of times we think, methamphetamine, that's not a black person's drug, right? And so we know, just like everything else, it flows to our communities, black communities, and black and brown communities, because there are some studies coming out that it's in the Latin area too. And so what happens is, once it gets in our areas, then the resources are dried up in the resource deserts. So advocate, don't be afraid, do what Kareem did, Google where are people finding these resources in my community, and link up, because there are resources. There are plenty of people that want to help you. Link up, shine, but also there's a spiritual side to this that we don't talk about. We can't get into it here because our time is up, and every time you talk about the spiritual stuff, it kind of gets very deep and heavy, but there are people that know that, and there are people that want to assist you in it, and you are not alone.
And really, really quick, linkupchicago.com. If you're looking for resources, you're looking for a community, you're looking for support and help, call us. We're here. I work the line, so sometimes you may speak with me, or you can speak with a live person 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And then, but with the line is available 24 hours. We can connect you to community resources, things like housing, things like mental health support, counseling, a number of things, and even fun stuff like this, like parties. Like where can you go for a party? Get in touch with us. We got you.
Thank y'all both for joining us today. Shout out Chicago Department of Public Health for passing out Narcan and fentanyl testing strips. You can get those at all of Project Vida locations. You can get them here at Market Days right now. And again, thank y'all guys for coming out and sharing y'all's experience, sharing y'all's knowledge. And let us know. We need to read or watch 33. And then Determinants of Health. What was the other one?
Political Determinants of Health, and linkupchicago.com.
Thank y'all. Happy Market Days.
Now we can karaoke.
I'm about
now
to
we can
slay.
karaoke. Yes.
Cut the tape. I'm about to slay them.